Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and boy oh boy, I am here to do another video, hopefully the full video, because it kind of reminds me of the season in a way, how disjointed this review has been. Because, I like to review something and get it done. I don't like to drag it out and do like 5 reviews. Like, when those shitty Star Wars movies came out and I just see like all these separate videos from the same channel talking about the movie over and over and over again. Like, I like to, review it and get it done. And I hope I can do that now. So season 3 of American Horror Story, in summary, I should just say this. I really liked the first half. I thought, in episode like 5 or 6, I was really excited because I thought, oh wow, this is like my favorite season. Because I was so excited. I loved all the characters for the most part. And I really loved the stories going on, and I thought, there's really hardly any flaws here, and it's so much better than AIDS Kills Everyone and fucking American Horror Story Season 11, and then, sadly, in the second half, everything fell apart. And it was so frustrating, it was so infuriating, the experience watching this, because people would just do the same things over and over again. They would just do these random switcheroos, like where Fiona would say, oh, actually, I'm going to help you now. But actually, I'm going to do this evil thing now. Oh, but actually, I'm going to do this now. And I just got so sick and tired of all the characters flip-flopping over and over again. It really felt like the writers struggled because these characters, their powers are so OP that, if you just had a straightforward story with no detours and no, just messing around in the middle, then the show would have been over in 2 seconds. It's weird, though, because there were so many great ideas. And I think that's also been a consistent problem with American Horror Story, is that even more so than the X-Files, this show has great ideas. And then when it comes down to, oh, what are you going to do with that idea? It always falls flat on its face. Like, for instance, let's talk about Spaulding, because I was worried I was going to forget about Spaulding because he's one of the lesser characters of the season. He's the butler. It's weird because they make him look a lot like the butler from Scary Movie 2. I don't know why they did that, because that was like a comedic character, so that was weird. And he is kind of a comedic, quirky, creepy side character, kinda. There's this kind of meaningless story where they reveal that he was friend-zoned by Jessica Lange, the sexy Jessica Lange. And by the way, guys, no matter what, these first 4 seasons, they will always be superior to the rest because you got Jessica Lange. If they didn't have Jessica Lange, they'd be in trouble. Okay, I'll just say that. But he was friend-zoned by her in the past, and then I need to turn that off somehow. I don't want that to go on through this whole review. And sorry, excuse me, that just came out of nowhere. My favorite episode of the season was probably episode 3, because it started off with a flashback where Fiona kills her mother and the former Supreme, and then she therefore becomes the new Supreme. And then we see in the modern day, at the end of the episode, she accidentally, quote unquote, kills Madison. And we'll talk about Madison because she's like one of the worst characters of the whole series, next to Abigail Winters and a couple other trash characters. But of course, then you have season 11 where it's like all the characters suck. Well, they suck in multiple ways, but, primarily they're just garbage. So, I really love that, and of course Spaulding, he helps cover up both crimes, and so I really love that, like the contrast of like history repeating itself, and you can see like, is Fiona the villain of the season? That's another issue for me. Probably the biggest issue of the season, actually, when I think about it, is the fact that there really is no villain in season 3. You have number 1, you have, let's see, you have Fiona. She is kind of teased as the villain, but then, she really isn't the real villain. They show that multiple times. She's growing older and she's really insecure about that, and she's just really the issue was that she was not good enough to be supreme, and she did a terrible job in the position. So she wasn't really a villain, though. And then you have Madame Laveau, which, by the way, she was really sexy as well. Angela Bassett, she did a great job. I love the performances this season. I will say, like, pretty much everyone gave a great performance, even if I didn't like their character, in contrast with season 2, where I felt there were some really cringeworthy performances. So, okay, what was that? Okay, so Fiona isn't evil. Madame Laveau, she does a lot of evil stuff. I mean, she is very vengeful. She is just cutthroat, but at the same time, she's a really, like, kind of likable person. She's a very... It seems like she is pretty fair a lot of the times, and she's very loyal, and she's a good leader, kinda. I mean, that's another issue, is that her whole coven got taken out in like 2 seconds, and it just made me wonder, like, wow, she really wasn't that good of a leader. Like, see, there were so many things that were like undone throughout the season of like, you're thinking one thing, and then they do the exact opposite. And so she's not the villain. Then you have Kathy Bates is Delphi, or they call her Delphi, or Lurie. I'll just call her Kathy Bates. She definitely was evil. I mean, especially in the past, she was so creepy and so scary. And she might actually be one of the better villains in the history of the series. I mean, it was so... That was my favorite story at first, seeing this serial killer, like kind of like Elizabeth Bathory, come to the modern age, and she's, seeing that how the world has changed, and she basically is forced to be a personal servant to the Queenie, and she really hates it because she's racist, and it was so hilarious. Probably one of the funniest moments of the series is when she first comes out of her chains, because Nan got annoyed that she was hearing the voices of her in her head. She was like, "You think too loud," and then she let her go. And it's weird because they never really established that Nan... It would make sense, like, if they had established that she was, like, I don't know, like, she had some sort of another issue besides her powers. But it was just straight up, no, like, she was so stupid that she would let this serial killer loose because she's mad that she's hearing her thoughts. Which doesn't make any sense, because she should have been hearing her thoughts the whole time. Like, she was in the ground, in the dirt, and so she should have already been hearing that woman's thoughts before she was even dug up. Kathy Bates comes out into the hallway with the candlestick, and she's like, "Out of my way, slave!" And she knocks out Queenie. It was just so funny. It was just like, what the, like, is this character is not going to do very well. But then it was kind of a surprise, the fact that at the beginning of the season, I was actually liking her character more than, like, anyone else. Like, I thought, I'd really like to see her redemption arc. I'd like to see her change and, like, maybe become, like, a hero, and then she could finally be released and die. So, I like that. But then, sorry, there's so much to talk about. It is like I should have made like a list of just, but then you talk about one thing, it leads to another thing. Like, it's really insane. So Madison Montgomery, God, what do I even talk about? What do I even talk about? There's so much in so little time. Madison Montgomery, let's just roast Madison Montgomery. Let's go through each character. I was talking about villains, that's right. People are going to be so upset. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's just, there's so much in this season. Like, they really tried to go above and beyond. We were talking about the lack of villains. So, then what happens, though, is in the second half of the season, she's kind of rendered useless. There's this thing that happens that's really disappointing, and then another thing happens that's really disappointing, and then another thing that happens that's really disappointing, where her character, it turns out, hasn't learned any lesson whatsoever, even though she literally learned lessons multiple fucking times. So the lesson to me was that, just like in seasons 1 and 2, was that, evil characters can't be redeemed. In the first season, you had Tate. He was the best character of the whole season. But since they didn't want you to empathize with the mass murderer, they made it so that he could never be redeemed, and everyone hates him, and he's just a monster, blah, 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 blah. Which, honestly, he was, but at the same time, like, he shouldn't have been the rubber man. That was already an issue for me. That was one of the biggest issues of that season. And then in season 2, you had the son of Bloodyface, which, of course, his own mom basically turned him into a serial killer. And then it was sort of like the message of that he couldn't change either. And then, of course, I think the Nazi doctor, they had some sort of a redeeming thing with him where he couldn't change either, and so he gets killed. Or no, wait, no, he killed himself. Yeah, oh yeah, that was pretty good. See, I think season 2 is probably the best season so far, honestly. Just remembering, like, yeah, that was a pretty good ending and a pretty good story. But then in season 3, you get the same message again. Delphi Lardry, let's just call her Lardass. Madame Lardass, she can't change. She'll just be forever evil, even though Queenie, she's a black girl, and she's a voodoo doll person, and she's really cool at first. And she sacrifices herself, basically, for Lardass. And then Lardass learns, like, oh, wow, like, I shouldn't be thinking of black people as, like, these you know how racists think, like, people who aren't the same color, like, not even people. It basically taught her that she should, rethink her entire outlook on the world and on people. And it was really, really cool seeing the relationship of her and Queenie and how, they're becoming friends, and how even though Queenie, she didn't necessarily like the finishing school or the people there because they were bitches to her, but she did really like Madame Lardass. And it was really cool because I thought, like, is this going to lead somewhere epic where, maybe they're both good guys, and then it's really a surprise that she didn't become the villain, and that would be like the whole interesting thing that, like, because you think about too, a lot of these evil people, what happens when they go to the spirit world? They probably change and become better people on the other side. And so it was really interesting seeing that transformation happen in reality with Madame Lardass. But instead, what happens is Queenie does the unthinkable. And it pisses me off so much. It made me so upset. She says, now we both have to tell each other the worst things we've ever done, and it'll make our friendship stronger. And so Madame Lardass says that one time she killed the baby of one of the slaves, one of the house slaves, because she had the baby with a white person, and then she used the baby's blood to give herself a facial. But what's hilarious is that Madame Laveau is revealed to be giving away an innocent baby every single year. And Queenie literally changes sides and goes over to Madame Laveau. And it's like, wait a second, like, she betrayed Lardass all because of that baby issue. But then you have Madame Laveau who's doing the exact same fucking thing. And it's like, oh, whatever. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so Queenie betrays Lardass and lures her to the saloon where she works, where Madame Laveau works. And it was so queer, too, because, like, the way that she got convinced to join her side was that she was really hungry, and she went over to Madame Laveau to get some gumbo, because the white people at the finishing school, they've never given her gumbo before. And it's like, God, this is really bizarre. Like, like she literally was a traitor because of gumbo and a story that happened 1,000,000 years ago, whereas Madame Laveau every year is sacrificing an innocent child to a fucking ancient demon named, like, Papa Legba, who fucking she sold her soul to him. I mean, why in the hell would Queenie want to be associated? Like, that's just really, really bad. I would not want to be in league with someone who sold their soul to a demon. I mean, and so, oh, God, barely begun. So let's just finish up with this storyline, because then we can talk about all the others. Then what happens is she's kept up, and Madame Laveau does this random thing where she uses her blood to give herself a facial, which makes you wonder, why didn't she just do that back in the day? Like, she made Kathy Bates immortal, and she could have done that back in the day. And it's like, why did she wait all the way until the 21st century to torture her like that and to take some of her blood? Because remember, at this point, she hasn't even done anything bad in modern day except for knock out Queenie at first, because she was, in culture shock. And it's really cold in here, too, so I'm sorry if I'm kind of, like, pausing. It's just because it's so cold. It's making me not even want to talk. So what happens next is that Madame Laveau cuts off her head and then mails it to the White Coven. And then the White Coven takes it back. And then Queenie takes the head, and all of a sudden she's kind of like feeling bad for her or something. It doesn't make any sense. And then Queenie says that she's going to be re-educated and she's going to cure her of her racism. And so then she puts on Roots and all these other movies. And then she puts on this music. And I will say that I did really love the whole sequence with the shootout and the whole thing with her listening to the music, because it was a very like powerful, like intense sequence, even though it was just kind of like, okay, whatever, because they were acting like Kathy Bates was finally being cured of her racism by listening to this music by, I can't remember his name, but it was very good music. And it was just very bizarre. But they made it seem like, oh, wow, now Kathy Bates is cured of her racism. And so then Queenie, and God, Queenie's the worst. Like, oh yeah, did I mention, like, she's going out to, like, procure organs for Madame Laveau, too? Like, she's going around killing people and taking their organs. And the thing is, like, I don't care if that guy was a serial killer and serial rapist. Like, you can't just go around killing people and taking their organs. Like, that was an issue with this show, is that there was some really twisted morality. Like, at one point, they were talking about the Axeman, which he was one of the worst characters as well. And they were talking about, he's a serial killer. And then Cordelia said, you know, we all could be described as serial killers. And I was like, thank you! Like, thank you! Like, you guys are going around just killing people and just, you know, oh, torture yourself. Throw yourself off of this. Do this. Drink my spit. Like, it's just really bad stuff. And then at the end of the day, still kind of pretending that they have this, like, morality and that the other people don't. Like, the other people on the other side don't. It's just a bunch of bullshit. You know, at least Madame Laveau was, you know, more honest, and, you know, she knew she was doing bad stuff. And so Queenie comes back to the Coven with Kathy Bates in her full body, and she reattaches the head. And now it's really weird because the Coven just accepts Lardass without, and Queenie, without any sort of question at all. Like, really? And Queenie doesn't even apologize or anything. She just acts like, oh, it's just a regular day at the office. I betrayed you guys. But now that Madame Laveau's entire Coven is dead, I'm going to just come back now and pretend like nothing happened. And, like, her attitude in the second half of the season was really poor. Like, the way that she treated the Coven, and she kind of acted like, you know, she didn't do anything wrong, and that they were the ones who should be sorry to her. And so then Kathy Bates is now a servant to them. Oh, yeah, and then Madame Laveau joins them, too, which was bizarre. That didn't make any sense at all. And and so then Kathy Bates is just a servant again. You know, she was already a maid in the first half of the season, which I liked. But then she's made to be a maid again. And then there's this whole thing where she misses black people's blood. Like, it really, really weird. And so she gets thirsty when the black gardener cuts his hand, and so she takes him into the attic and tortures him and takes his blood. Like, really, really weird. Didn't make any sense at all. Okay, so she didn't learn her lesson. She's still racist, and nothing changed. She didn't change at all. Meanwhile, you have an American Horror Story Season 11 where the serial killer, the Mai Tai killer, he's not only glorified by the show, but then the main character, he says, oh, the Mai Tai killer, he was just killing people so that he could show his gay pride. I mean, just the twisted morality of these people is just on another level of weirdness. And so then what happens is even weirder because Kathy Bates has this whole stupid subplot with Spaulding where Spaulding's a ghost, but he's still around. I'm not going to even get into that until, God, there's so much. Okay, but I'm almost done with Queenie and Madame Lardass, so thank God. She runs away, and then Queenie goes to look for her, and she finds her in her old house, which has now become like a museum of horrors. Which, that was another thing, too, is that it was very painful for her to see the fact that her home is now turned into this museum where, she's constantly looked at as a monster. Just imagining if that happened to you, it would be very painful. And she deserves it, though. But it's weird because she goes there and she dresses up as a tour guide and she starts giving tours and pretends like nothing happened in the house and that she never killed anyone. She never did anything wrong. And she's trying to like rewrite history. So then what happens is that like Queenie sends her to hell and kills her. And it's just so unsatisfying. It's like this is not what I wanted to happen with this character. Like, I would have been fine with her getting killed at some point, but it was so weird how she just kept flip-flopping. And you really can't blame her because she was trying to be friends with Queenie, and it seemed like she was on a good path. And then Queenie just straight up betrayed her. And it was like really kind of sickening and kind of evil. And it made me think like, oh wow, Madame Laveau and Queenie and the Voodoo Coven, they're going to be the villains of the show. That was unexpected. And then of course that's undone. And then of course, so that's done. So Madame Lardass is forever in hell. And her punishment is she keeps having to watch her daughter, her favorite daughter, get punished over and over again by way of having a fire poker shoved up her ass or down her throat over and over and over again. Which was really weird because you think, where do they come up with that stuff? Well, that was something that John Wayne Gacy did to one of his victims, so it's kind of weird that they were using that for this. It's like, okay. So that whole storyline was a big disappointment, and it really pissed me off because Kathy Bates' performance was one of the best things about the season. I mean, it was so weird how, it just shows how much of a good actress she is, that she was able to play like this evil, cold killer in flashbacks. And then you see her in modern day, and it's like she's trying to change. She's becoming a better person. She's redeeming herself, quote unquote. But then she just reverts back to being evil. And it's like, oh, wow, that was all a waste of time. That was really necessary. And then you have the fact that, like, Fiona, she let Madame Lardass out in the first place. And that's never really answered. And it's like, she never really did anything with that. Like, that was another thing, was that Fiona just randomly let out the serial killer, and she never really used her at all to help do anything. So, very, very disappointing. And what even happens with Queenie? Like, does Queenie, like, nothing? Like, I think Queenie survives, and she's just, like, wallpaper. So I guess, like, they're okay with having this traitor who betrayed them for no reason. I guess they're just perfectly okay with having her be one of the main members of this elite witches finishing school. And the reason why I'm being so harsh on her is because they said they barely have any witches left. Well, then wouldn't you not want to have a traitor like her on your team so that you don't have to worry about her getting another person killed? Like, you'd think that would be like a worry, a concern, but no, it's just like, whatever. So I need to get back to just talking generally about the show because, it's already halfway over and I haven't even gotten started yet, basically. But another problem of the show, because I really want to hammer in this as just a general review. I can still continue to make tons of videos about this, I guess, because I guess I have to. Like, there's just so much to talk about. I just was so mad at that betrayal and that whole friendship storyline because it just, I don't get the messages. Basically, nobody can ever be redeemed except for Madame Laveau and Queenie for doing anything wrong. If you have done something wrong, you're forever going to be punished, like Jimmy McGill. Except if you're certain characters, like with Kim, where Kim never got punished. Kim Wexler just got to get away with everything, even though she was the real evil person, not Jimmy. It was the same in this show, where, Kathy Bates, she was evil, but it was so odd how, the way her character was treated. It was almost like, once again, they were worried that if they showed her in a good light, that they would get canceled or something. It was really weird. Like, we knew that she was evil. Like, you didn't have to make her become evil again. Like, she could have, like, it would have been just as impactful. You could still say that she's evil even if she redeems herself, because at the end of the day, like, she still would have had to go to that personal hell when she would get killed. And so, she would still get punished in the afterlife as well in this universe. So, but another big issue, and I'm going to take a drink because my voice sounds different. Another issue is that with this season especially, a lot of the problems, and I know you guys might have seen these videos, these pitch meeting videos. Have you ever seen those videos where the guy says, super easy, barely an inconvenience? Well, it was so funny because while I was watching this, that is literally the thing that just kept on coming into my head over and over and over again. I mean, they'd have something, like, let's see, what plot line should I follow? I'm going to take another drink because this is going to be long. Okay, well, Madame Laveau unleashed a horde of zombies, which I will say, that was when the season was good. I really liked that. I thought that was cool as fuck. That was one of my favorite things of the season. And I was like, oh wow, it's going to be cool. Like, these girls are left all alone because they're incompetent leaders. And that's another thing we'll talk about. And they're fending off against these zombies and they don't know what to do. And it's really, really cool. Queenie is taken out of the picture. Nan can't really do much of anything because all she is clairvoyant. And then Zoe, she's just kind of like awkward, teeny romance girl who's just focused on Evan Peters. Excuse me. And so it's like, oh wow, it's going to be really hard to get out of this problem with the zombies. Oh no, actually it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Because Zoe is going to go all Ash from Evil Dead and she's just going to start chainsawing zombies. And then she's going to have this thing where she randomly has a new power where she kills all the zombies and then makes it so that Madame Laveau gets knocked on her ass. I mean, that was just like all out of nowhere. It was totally like, okay, I kind of expect this, because that was when I thought Zoe is obviously going to be the Supreme because she's like the main character, I guess. And so it was just like, so super easy, barely an inconvenience. Just let Zoe take care of it after she's done fucking fixing Evan Peters' fucking canned tuna and mayonnaise. And oh god. Now let's talk about Evan Peters. Because one of the many issues of this season is this is when they were going mainstream. You could tell. Because the way that they played Evan Peters off in this season, the way that they treated him, you could really tell that they knew the audience, that they just knew what they were going for. Let's show Evan Peters in the shower. Let's show a close-up of his nipple, because teen girls really want to see that. And so, we have to keep doing that over and over again. And it was like, that was literally his whole purpose this season. It was so irritating because, I was excited. He started off as this, good guy, frat guy, and they're at a frat party. It's just Zoe, the Cheerios girl, and Madison Montgomery, the bitch, the mean girl. And one of the things that they did this season is something where they kind of try to do this with all the mean girl characters. You know what happens with mean girls after high school, by the way? They become single moms, trailer trash, or Karens. That's literally what happens to them. I just spoiled it for you if you guys were curious. That's what happens with every mean girl after high school. And I'm not going to get into personal examples because I don't want to sound like a jackass, but let's just say I could probably show you about 1,000 right now if you really wanted to know. And it's really cringeworthy, by the way. But one of the many things that they tried to do this season was they tried to make you like Madison Montgomery. And I was like, what is there to like about Madison Montgomery? She's a one-dimensional mean girl from Hollywood with this kind of bitchy LA girl attitude where she's just really spoiled. She takes drugs to drown away her pain. And she has eating disorders because that's what all mean girls have. All mean girls are just secretly sad on the inside. And they just all have these terrible problems that aren't ever dealt with. And and so in the first episode, she starts to get gang raped by the fraternity brothers, and then Evan Peters comes in and saves her, and he throws the rapists out, and then there's this whole thing where they get on a bus, and Madison Montgomery knocks over the whole bus, and it makes it so that all the people die, even Evan Peters. But then the irony is that even though Evan Peters died, the rapist is still alive in the hospital. So Cheerios girl, the only time in the whole season where her sex powers are ever used is that she then has sex with the rapist until he's dead. And so that's literally all that was for, the sex powers, was so that she could get her revenge on him, which is really weird because literally all she had to do was suffocate him with a pillow. The typical people in the hospital get killed death scenario. Just suffocate that bitch with a pillow. It's really not that difficult. But instead, I don't know. So then what happens is Madison Montgomery and Cheerios girl, they go to the morgue so that they can bring back Evan Peters to life as like a Frankenstein monster. And I really liked that story. I thought, oh wow, this is really cool. It's really different because it's like, I don't in past seasons you really wished that characters could just get brought back to life, willy-nilly. For instance, in season 1, I really wished that some of those characters could have gotten brought back to life, like maybe the daughter of the neighbor, the girl who got ran over on Halloween, and then the gay couple, they're like doomed to spend eternity with each other even though they don't love each other. Like you really wish that these characters didn't have to suffer these sad fates. And they're going to do that with this Evan Peters character, who you really don't get to know. And so, at first, obviously, it turns out really wrong. And he's like a monster. He just has no cognitive anything. He's just... And then what happens is we're introduced to Misty Day. And Misty Day is another strange character where she honestly, she was like my favorite character, or like my second favorite. And then they did something with her that was just so irritating that it makes me pissed off to think about it. So he's taken to her, and then there's this whole thing with that. And she's the type of character where, when you play a video game and there's that character who lives in the middle of nowhere, and they would either kill you or be friends with you. Like, I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, but kind of like Virgil in Fallout 4, the way that he's secluded from the world. He's a very neutral character, and so it all depends on how you treat him. He could either be a really epic villain or a really epic hero. They never really define what Misty Day is. She's just kind of like a kooky, wooky side character. She reminded me of a lot of like Sherry Moon Zombie and the Munsters. She was really good though. Like, I really, really liked her, and I thought, oh, I can't wait to see what she ends up doing. What a mistake that was. So anyway, cut the long story short, Evan Peters is now like he's better-ish, and so Zoe takes him home. And another thing that was interesting was the running theme this season with abusive parents. And I will end on this, by the way, because as soon as I'm finished with this, it'll probably be out of time. I'm just going to have to make a shit ton of videos ranting about American Horror Story Season 3. I guess, like, each video I'll go through a couple of storylines. So she takes him home, like, unknowingly to his abusive mother. And that was kind of an interesting story. And then it's like, oh, wow, I bet it's going to be really super hard to get him out of that. Oh, no, actually, it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Evan Peters is just going to randomly kill his mom. Oh, I wonder how they're going to get out of that. I bet it's going to really be hard to cover up the murder of the mom after the elders at the Coven finishing school are really upset that, like, they have to keep up cleaning up the teen girls' messes. Oh, no, actually, it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Yeah, Zoe is she's just gonna let everything stay in the house, just let it look like someone came in there and attacked her, not really do anything to clean up the crime scene. Oh, no, instead, she's gonna say, oh, Evan Peters, you look hungry because you're hot, and I want to feed my heartthrob boyfriend, Zombie. And so then she gets, I'm not even kidding, guys, this bitch, she gets some fucking canned tuna and some mayonnaise, and she puts it in a bowl, and it looked like fucking dog food. It was so disgusting. It's like, bruh, doesn't this fucking abusive bitch, doesn't she have any bread? Like, you can't even put that fucking tuna salad on some bread. I mean, I got what she was trying to, but she didn't even cut up any celery. She didn't even cut up any onion. She didn't put any other things in it. It's just canned tuna and mayonnaise in this bitch. And then she goes and then she wants to poison him because he's not the way that she wants. She wants to poison him. And so, but he's gone. Oh, I bet it's going to be really hard to track him down, like in Frankenstein, the book, where Dr. Frankenstein has to travel all the way to, like, Antarctica to find the monster before they finally both die. oh no, actually it's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Yeah, Evan Peters is just going to go back to Misty Day. And Misty Day has resurgence powers, by the way. She seems like she's really badass. There's this whole, like, story where, they're like, you're really underestimating this character because she's just giving off the persona that she's like this hippie swamp woman when really she's really powerful and really strong. And then it's like, oh no, actually she's not super strong or powerful or smart at all because she's doing the 7 Wonders test and she fucking gets stuck in hell! And that fucking pissed me off. I was so like, Misty Day, this character, this beloved character, how could they do this to you? And they just wrote her off the show like she's a nothing. Like she's a nothing, and this character is fucking awesome. And they ruined that. So then Evan Peters, he starts to get raped by both Madison Montgomery and Cheerios Girl, and they get into this like weird polyamorous relationship where they're both having sex with him, and apparently Zoe's sex powers won't work on Evan Peters because plot reasons. He's been brought back from the dead, so it's canceled out her powers. That doesn't make any sense at all. And that's another thing, is that once one character gets brought back from the dead, you'd think that's going to be something that's only used once or twice this season, because it's something that, when you bring back characters from the dead over and over again, it kind of takes away all the stakes of the plot. It takes away all the stakes in general. And so, but no, they just keep on bringing every single character back to life over and over and over again. Like, every time someone dies, okay, let's just bring that person back to life. Vitalum Virialis. Fucking venereal disease Virialis. Like, fucking, it's bizarre. It's really irritating. It's like, okay, so who cares if people die? Wow. Because they can just be brought back with a little magic, a little resurgence powers. And you don't even have to be Misty Day to do that. You can just be a normal witch like Zoe or Cordelia or anyone. Queenie. Queenie can do it. Madison Montgomery can do it. They all can do it. So it's like... But they do say that, silver bullets, I guess they kill witches permanently. So they have these witch hunters, which is a whole other subplot, which I'd have to get into explaining that. That whole plot goes nowhere really fast. They introduce that plot and make it seem like they'll be the main villains. And then they all get killed, like, immediately after that in this really, like, cringeworthy, contrived way. And then it's so funny because I was thinking, wow, it's another super easy, barely an inconvenience situation. And then, guys, you're not going to believe this. And then Angela Bassett stands there and she has the nerve to say, super easy, barely an inconvenience, basically. Like, she says, wow, I thought it was going to be a lot harder to kill these guys. And it's like, wow, fuck you, audience. Like, fuck you guys. Like, everyone thought this was going to be really hard. Just thinking about Teen Wolf and thinking about how in the second season of Teen Wolf, you had the wolf hunters were like the main villains, and the whole thing with the Chimera was like a fake out, and it was really cool, and it was done really well. It was really intense. Oh no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have them just be another fake out villain. So, God, if this stuff isn't, if this isn't frustrating for you, then I guess you'd like the rest of the season as well. It's really frustrating, and with Madison Montgomery, she gets killed, and they want to make you feel sorry because Fiona kills her on accident, and it's like, oh, wah, 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 didn't care. And it was kind of like with Howard and Better Call Saul, where, you know, he was a big jackass, and then all of a sudden they wanted to give him these easy sympathy points by saying, hey, look, this character has a wife and kids and stuff. Or no, he didn't even have kids, he just had a wife who hated him. And he goes to therapy. And it was the same thing for Madison Montgomery. And then they had this thing where she has this cringeworthy monologue where she's like, usually I binge and I just drink random chemicals and random spell liquids, and I just see what happens to me, and nothing really happens to me. And so you think, oh, maybe she's going to be the Supreme, because they have this whole rule about how a person has to be in perfect health to become the Supreme, even though the person who becomes the Supreme is blind. And, we will talk about Cordelia, that's for sure. Okay, but there's 10 minutes left. It's so frustrating having to, like, speed run through this, like, just tens of thousands of possible things I could talk about. The last thing that I'll say before I give my food review, because I do want to at least do that for this video. So it's not over. It's not over, Queenie. It's not over, Cordelia. It's not over, shitty-ass witch hunter subplot story. It's not over until I say it's over. And it's fucking cold in this bitch, too. The last thing that I'll say, though, is the fact that this coven is the worst coven in history. Like, they never know really how to protect the girls at this finishing school. They never really even teach them anything, so you're wondering why they call this a school for magic when they never even teach them any magic or anything. They're just supposed to learn it themselves. It's really frustrating. Like, Cordelia, of all people, becoming the Supreme is one of the most shitty-ass decisions I've ever seen. And it goes back to the real-world bias where Ryan Murphy, he really had a hard-on for Crybaby, for her as an actress, and so he would make her Supreme. There's even this cringeworthy line where she's crying in the final moments of the final episode. She's crying her eyes out, and she says, I'm not crying for you, I'm crying for me. It's Cordelia, though, she is the worst fucking character. Like, she doesn't know shit that's going on. She has to get psychic visions so that she can become a good leader. And then she barely does anything when she has the psychic vision. She doesn't really get anything accomplished when she gets her powers. And then what happens is her shitty-ass friend Myrtle Snow gives her eyes back. And she's like, oh, wow, this is really great. Thanks. And then she gets mad about that. So she stabs her own eyes out. And then she spends the rest of the season blind again, trying to relearn psychic powers so that she can see the visions again. And then she's given these new powers where she can see the future. And she can't even get anything accomplished. The only thing that she actually gets accomplished is she figures out, oh, wait a second, I can prevent Madison Montgomery from being the Supreme by entering into the contest myself. Yay! Like, and it's so hilarious because you also think about she's infertile. You know, she can't have babies. So that's another thing where she's not in perfect physical health, which they say that the Supreme has to be in perfect physical health. And it's just shitty because they didn't care about any of these rules. They were making all these things up just to make the plot interesting. And so when they made up that rule that the Supreme had to be in perfect health, they already knew that they didn't care because, you know, it was automatically like, okay, Cordelia can't be the Supreme, obviously, which is frustrating for her since, she's kind of a failure at everything. Her own husband was a witch hunter, and she never knew. And okay, so still have so much stuff to talk about with this fucking season. I will say the performances were all really good. And the first 5 to 6 episodes really liked. I really liked the Head episode. There's an episode called The Head or just Head. I liked that episode a lot because I really liked that intense mass murder at the end. It was very intense. And the really cool thing that Queenie does, the only thing cool that she does the whole season, where she actually shoots herself in the head because she's a voodoo doll and it kills the bad guy. And I thought, wow, that was really cool. If only she was still a good guy, I would actually be really happy with that. And I'd say, wow, that was one of the highlights of the season. So, for my food review, I'm going to give this season what I had for dinner last night. We went to Olive Garden, and I was thinking, I want to go on a tour of Olive Garden. I want to have some different things there to see what I like, what I don't like. So the first thing I had was salmon with broccoli, which I had before, and I really loved it this time. Surprisingly, it was tasty. It was salted perfectly. The lemon with the salmon and the broccoli was perfect. It was so good. That, to me, was like the first 5 to 6 episodes. Because I was really loving the season and thought, oh, wow, this season could be the best one. And then, after that, I had something that usually I have a lot, which is the chicken gnocchi soup. Usually that's my favorite thing that I eat at Olive Garden. You always get a soup or salad with your food, so... But this time, it was not good. It had an off taste, and the gnocchi was weird, and it just was not good. You could tell that they were busy. They rushed through it, and that was all the betrayal with Queenie, and then the Axeman character coming in, and what happened with him and Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange, her character, she was one of the highlights of the first half of the season, and even though her acting is A+, it could not make up for her bad story in the second half of the season. So that was the soup. So then I tried the 5-cheese pasta dish, which I got as a half entree that you can get for half the price. And that was gross. It was really overly salty and just so I would not have wanted to eat that whole thing. So that to me represented the next few episodes before the finale where, Madame Laveau and Kathy Bates get taken out and you're left wondering, okay, now there's nothing left. Oh yeah, Fiona gets killed, Madame Laveau gets killed, Kathy Bates gets killed, all the best characters get killed, and you're left with trash. And so then what did I have last, ladies and gentlemen, and other types of beings like minotaurs? What did I have last? I had a salad. I had a fucking salad at fucking Olive Garden. I didn't even have a breadstick last night because I thought I'm going to enjoy myself and have some fucking variety, and I had a salad. I had a salad at Olive Garden, and it was exactly how one would expect a salad to be. It was just so empty and so bland, and it was, the cheese was gross, the olives were gross, the fucking olives at Olive Garden were gross. And then, the dressing was gross, that was the finale. The salad was the finale. And then after that, you know what I did? I had my mint. I had my Andy's mint. That represented the ending credits when I knew that this shit was over. So it was really weird, like, eating that food and just thinking about, like, this is literally the season. Like, I'm eating the season right now as I'm watching it. It was so surreal. So anyways, I will be back because there's so many more things to talk about. You know, I feel bad because I really wish I could get it all done, but I need to get back home. It is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of Season 3, and tell me what you because I know there are so many people who love Madison Montgomery. Like, ew. And you know what? Like, even though I hate Queenie, I'll take Queenie over Madison Montgomery any day of the week. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos about American Horror Story Season 3, the mixed bag season. So goodbye, everybody.